They came to Earth on their flying palaces. They were mightier than us, stronger, larger, and faster. 5,000 years ago, these beings descended into our world. Their level of technology was so advanced, historical records place it close to sorcery. The hall was bathed in decorum, except for the audible voice of the lecturer standing in front. Several images emanated from the projector, aiding his fluid explanation of the topic. Something about ancient gods. I spotted Megan yawning in the front row. Most of the students present looked uninterested in the class. This class must be really boring. I think I'll just sit and wait until they're done. I glanced at the military-grade watch. I guess I still have some time to spare. My eyes were fixed on Megan. She seemed restless and eager to leave the class, eyeing her phone at regular intervals. I had earlier told her that I would be coming to pick her up at noon. This was probably the reason for her restlessness. I pulled out my phone and began to punch into the keypad. Turn around. She swirled and instantly spotted me seating at a secluded corner in the hall. Her aura brightened, and she gave a cheerful smile. "Listen," I whispered, pointing towards her lecturer. She rolled her eyes before returning her gaze to the man in the front. He seemed quite knowledgeable. On one of the slides was written boldly, Professor Ryan. He was a stout man, probably in his mid-40s, energetic, alert, and totally immersed in his lecture that he didn't notice that most of the students were already asleep. He did not even notice me entering his class moments ago. I was actually curious to know what he was teaching, so I decided to listen in. Myth and legend call them gods, but extensive research has proven that we are not the only species to have walked this earth. We will not be the last. They are known by many names across different cultures. One story, different tongues. Zeus, Raiden, Indra, Odin, Jupiter. Powerful alien entities who descended from the heavens several millennia ago. Although it is not known what happened to them later on, several findings around the world show that they never really left. One of the images on the slideshow caught my attention. Tall and dark entities, standing almost as tall as a skyscraper. Their eyes cast a radiant glow of bright red on dark clouds as streaks of lightning. Soft hands suddenly circled my neck, pulling me out of my thoughts. The class was over. "Come on, Matt. We have a plane to catch." Megan looked gorgeous in her new dress, her midnight black hair flowing against her shoulders. She smiled at me, revealing her dazzling white teeth, causing me to notice her fair and spotless skin glowing in the dark hall. I rose to my feet, wrapped my hands around her waist, and placed a soft kiss on her lips. "Matt, I'm in class," she protested. "I know. You're just too pretty." I let out a calm smile before taking her hand and leading her toward my car. "Packed your things?" Megan was beaming with excitement. She was anxious about our trip. "Yep, first thing I did this morning." My thoughts kept going back to the strange alien entities on the slideshow in Megan's class as the taxi drifted towards the airport. Dark rain clouds had gathered, causing a gloom aura to fill the whole place. I've seen that image somewhere. I can't seem to remember where exactly, though. "Matt, is something wrong?" Megan asked curiously. "Oh, me? I'm fine." I forced a smile at Megan. She drew closer and placed her head on my chest. I never liked flights. Always hated heights since I was a kid. Something was coming. I could feel the tingling aura of impending doom, pervading every inch of serenity in my mind. I shoved off the thought even though my heartbeat danced to a different tune. Megan thought we were just embarking on a trip, but I had another mission. I had no idea what I was carrying with me. I was just following orders. Perhaps I shouldn't have brought Megan along. Well, it's just a delivery mission. Nothing serious. Once I'm done with the delivery, I can have a good time with Megan. My superiors had given me a top-level secret clearance at the airport, earning me a free pass into the plane. I did a quick double take at the small box that contained the package. If whatever was in this box was this important, why was I asked to travel in a passenger airplane? I was just a sergeant in the army who was given an all-expense-paid trip to Switzerland. Maybe I was just overthinking. Besides, it's not as if I had much of an option. I had to carry out my duties. I tightened my grip around Megan's arm as we strolled into the airplane. Megan was seated closer to the window, but I could still see the endless ocean which lay calmly below us. "Something is coming," I whispered. "Matt, are you alright? What is coming?" I started breathing hard, causing large beads of sweat to trickle down my face. I turned to look at the small box which sat lifelessly beside me. "I don't know. Maggie, I don't feel too well. I began to tremble in my seat. Fear strolled by and stood before me. The atmosphere had become saturated in panic. You're a soldier, Matt. Get yourself together. I thought to myself, Matt, what is going on? You're scaring me. I couldn't explain what I was feeling. It was a mix of fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. The small box began to rattle ferociously, drawing my attention to it. Oh, fuck me. I groaned before picking up the box and holding it in front of my face. What is inside the box, Matt? Megan was slowly getting anxious too. I spotted a tiny carving engraved on the side of the box. I knew I had seen that image somewhere. Matthews! What image? Megan had lost her patience as she stared in dread at the rattling box. Before I could speak, a heavy pulse burst out from within the box, throwing us aback, and the plane simultaneously hit a turbulence. One of the flight attendants walked briskly out of the cockpit. Terror was written all over her face. Something is coming. Megan shifted her gaze towards me, speechless. A red glow emanated from within the box. Ladies and gentlemen, the flight attendant began, we are currently experiencing some turbulence. Please, fasten your seatbelts right away. We might need to attempt an emergency landing. I exchanged glances with Megan. I had stared face to face with death on the field several times, but the look on Megan's face made my heart sink. The left wing outside the plane suddenly burst into flames as the plane began to quickly veer to the right. What have I done? I whispered under my breath. The box in my hand began to dissolve, revealing its content. A pulsating, hexagonal object whirred and rattled loudly. I wanted to drop it when I noticed that it attached itself to my palms like glue. Megan stared in disbelief as I attempted to get it off. Babe, what is that? She exclaimed. I wish I knew what it was, but I couldn't even piece together the right words. We began to descend quickly. Oxygen masks fell from the top of the plane. I could hear people crying behind me. Others were praying and screaming. Watch out! A feminine voice echoed behind us, followed by a loud explosion. Our plane was being ripped to shreds. The hexagonal object was still attached to my palm. It looked like some sort of advanced technological device. There were strange markings around it, giving it an aesthetic, yet terrifying form. The plane was breaking up fast, as though a strange force was pulling it from below. Hold on, Maggie, I whispered to her, watching the silent tears roll down her cheeks. I love you, Michaels. Those were her last words to me. The turbulence suddenly ripped off the wall of metal behind her, pulling her into its grasp. Maggie! I took off my seatbelt and oxygen mask and jumped after her without hesitation. I grimaced as several shards of metal crashed into me, ignoring the cold and ferocious breeze that slammed against my body. The weird object was still attached to my palm, but I didn't care. My gaze was fixed on Megan, who was falling downwards towards the vast ocean. I struggled to breathe at such height as I dove after her, evading several objects that fell along. At this point, I knew I was never going to reach her on time. Megan! No! I watched as she crashed into the ocean with a splash, along with other debris from the plane. At such speed, my body would be torn into shreds upon impact with the ocean. I didn't care anyways. Megan had faced the same fate, and all of this was most likely my fault. I slowly shut my eyes and prayed for death. It soon came, but in the weirdest of ways. I felt every inch of my body crumble and groan in pain. What came next was blackness. Perhaps I was now in the afterlife. My eyes popped open, and a crashing pain sank deep into my skull as my thoughts came flooding back. Am I dead? Where am I? Several questions strolled across my mind. My body exploded in pain when I attempted to stand, but that was not what caught my attention. I was at the bottom of the ocean. How am I still alive? A strange sound echoed behind me, like an orchestra humming to some tragic note. I was shielded in some sort of force field. At least that explains why I survived the plane crash. I was not alone. My eyes searched through the darkness of the ocean until I saw it. 3 massive figures sat before me. I had seen these figures twice, so I couldn't be mistaken. They seemed like statues, and they looked stationary, but certainly not lifeless. The hexagonal object had detached from my palm, perhaps when I was unconscious, and now hovered in front of me. That was probably the cause of the force field that kept me alive. It also kept the water out, The massive being seemed to be draining the energy from the object. I wasn't certain about what was happening, but I had a theory. The words of Professor Ryan echoed in my mind. They are known by many names across different cultures. One story, different tongues. Zeus, Raiden, Indra, Odin, Jupiter. Powerful alien entities who descended from the heavens several millennia ago. Although it is not known what happened to them later on, several findings around the world show that they never really left. They never really left, I muttered. Maybe they want to come back and they need this object to do that. My superior should have told me what I was getting into. Megan didn't deserve to die. No one did. And this is all my fault. I was still staring at the massive statues when a set of bright ruby eyes lit up the darkness. I froze. I could hear the loud flapping of bird wings. Perhaps it was my heartbeat. But I knew I needed to do something even if it cost me my life. If what Professor Ryan said in his class is true, these beings will mark the end of life on Earth as we know it. I dashed towards the hexagonal object and dug my fingers into it. An excruciating pain sank into my body, but I couldn't let go. I felt a powerful surge of energy flood my being as I let out a loud cry. The energy was building up. I could swear I saw one of the statues move. I couldn't even feel fear at this moment. I felt nothing. A massive pulse of energy burst forth from the strange hexagonal object, propelling me upwards, away from the statues, which sat at the bottom of the ocean. I began to lose consciousness once again, but just before I shut my eyes, one of the statues tilted its head to look at me. Its bright red eyes stared at me in wrath. Next came darkness. I was awakened by the sound of helicopter motors. My eyes were greeted by a familiar sight, the setting sun, watching calmly at the far end of the military base. Several men in military uniforms carted me away on a stretcher. There seemed to be a sense of urgency in the base. "Welcome back, Sergeant," a familiar voice said. It was Colonel Duncan. At last, I was finally going to get some explanation. I tried to salute him when I noticed that my arm was coated with a dark tattoo. The carvings that were on the hexagonal object were etched on my arm. Death seemed to have crossed me off its hunting list today. Colonel Duncan was one of my superiors who sent me on this top-secret mission. He accompanied me into the quarantine room, observing me closely. As we stepped in, he motioned for everyone to leave until it was just the both of us. "We heard about the plane crash," he began. He looked at my arm for a while before returning his gaze to me. "The package?" he asked calmly. I didn't even know where to start or what hurt more, my broken heart or my body. "What was in that box, sir?" I struggled to speak. Colonel Duncan strolled to a secluded corner in the room, attempting to collect his thoughts. "We received a distress call from one of our secret organizations about an incident a few days ago. An unidentified object of unknown origin was found in a remote village on the South American soil after a massive explosion sank this village deep into the ground. There were no survivors or witnesses. And somehow, we managed to cover it up from the press. We set out the best in our team to find out what the object was, but they all had no clue. The only thing we got was the object was almost as old as the Earth itself, and contained in it was enough energy to take down an entire country. Soon after, we learned of a few experts at CERN who knew what the object was. They spoke some gibberish about aliens and ancient technology." I listened carefully to Colonel Duncan as he spoke, and I'd say that, with all I had seen today, the experts at CERN knew what they were talking about. I was now on my feet. To be honest, it all sounded like nonsense to me. Colonel Duncan continued. "I was shocked that a major part of the panel accepted their demands. We decided to send the object to them for further study. I do not know why you were chosen to transport such a deadly device on a passenger airplane. They said something about masking the object. I'm not sure what is going on, so I called back those experts at CERN. They refused to speak further. There's your story. Now, I need to know what the hell happened on that plane. I was about to speak when my arm began to tremble, followed by dying screams which echoed outside the room. Colonel Duncan and I exchanged glances before darting out of the quarantine area. Bodies of our comrades were splattered all over the base. They appeared to have been ripped apart by some beast, and it had happened in a flash. What in God's name? Colonel Duncan exclaimed. A distant thud echoed from the depths of an abandoned corridor, followed by deep, unearthly growls. The eerie silence that followed sucked out all the air in my lungs. We stepped out of the room, our eyes searching through the empty space for signs of anything. What could have done this? Whatever had strolled through the space was not human. The bodies looked like they had been ripped apart by some savage creature, and it felt like we were being watched. We need to get out of here, now! I needed to know what we were dealing with, and how to stop them, and I knew just the man to meet. Megan's college was just a few blocks away from this base, and I needed to get to Professor Ryan. The base was too quiet. Even my breath had gone silent. It was as though even the wind was scared to whistle her proud songs of solace. We knew we had become prey for whatever lurked beyond the shadows. Duncan and I retreated slowly towards the military truck that was parked at the edge of the base when we heard a loud growl. Run! Colonel Duncan let out. I'll cover you! He clenched his gun tightly, preparing for whatever came out of the corner. I jumped into the truck and fired her up. In that split second, dozens of alien creatures lunged out from all sides, flying toward us at an unbelievable speed. They looked different from what I had earlier encountered at the bottom of the ocean, but the bright red eyes couldn't be mistaken. These were probably their minions. They were about 6 feet tall with powerful wings attached to their backs. They wore some sort of armor that clutched tightly against their darkened bodies. Colonel Duncan fired several shots at them as I yelled at the top of my voice, asking him to join me in the truck. Get in! Get in! Perhaps it was his hour. He stood his ground, battling hard against the raging creatures. He turned his gaze slowly towards me and gave his final commands. Go! I didn't need to be told twice. I stepped on the throttle and sped out of the base. I knew what they had come for. I took another glance at the dark tattoo on my arm as Colonel Duncan's dying scream echoed into the evening sky. It wasn't hard to find Professor Ryan. He lived in a small cottage on the outskirts of the city. Despite my terrifying tales, he maintained a strange calm. I almost took him to be deaf. Well, you can try. There's nothing you can do to stop their rising. Those were the first words he had said to me since I stepped in. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. I had lost my Megan, and it was all my fault. I would do anything to make things right. My brother has been searching for the source for thousands of years, and from what you just told me, he has finally found it. Professor Ryan said calmly. Earth is a beautiful planet. I'll give you all that. So much life. It's so sad it all has to go now. Okay, now he's finally talking and it's all gibberish. Your brother? The source? I asked curiously. Oh, the scary guys you saw at the bottom of the ocean? He's always been the smartest of us. Some folks even worshipped him as the god of lightning for decades. Ryan chuckled. I don't understand. I was beginning to lose my patience. Those creatures would be here at any moment, and the last thing I needed were parables. When we came to Earth several millennia ago, we never wanted to rule. But my brother got corrupted by power. He did some things. Zeus, Odin. They called him many names. They worshipped him. What are you? When you came in contact with the source, part of it synced with your biology. He interrupted. I would need to increase the vibrational frequency of your arm to extract it. Not that it matters anyway. How do you know so much about them? I asked curiously. I put them in there thousands of years ago, Ryan replied. It took a while to sink in. Wait, what? The source, that stuff on your arm. I used the last of my strength to trap them for this long, and it's the only power that could bind them or free them. Unfortunately, I don't have my strength anymore, so I locked it up quite well. Seems like he found it. Thanks to mankind's curiosity and also thanks to you. He has absorbed part of its energy, just enough to awaken his minions. Oh, I think they're here. Professor Ryan began to laugh hysterically. What can I do to stop them? I rose to my feet. Stop them! Stop them. He began to laugh once again, coughing at intervals. Stop it. Professor Ryan brought out a glowing box. It had several carvings engraved on it, and as he brought it close to my arm, the ink on my arm began to crawl off, returning to its original state as soon as it entered the box. This should keep his minions away from you, but I'm afraid it's a bit too late to stop my brother now. If they need this stuff to fully awaken, I said, pointing at the box, then I am going to get as far away from them as possible. I let out. Well, as I said earlier, you can try, the professor said before strolling towards his bedroom. He stopped short and turned to me. Good luck, soldier. I stepped out of the professor's house with the box in my hands. The sun hid its face from what was coming. Darkness stretched across the sky as hundreds of flying insects thundered towards my location. They were coming with everything they had. Perhaps there was nothing I could do. Maybe it was time to join Megan. My heart danced to the music of fear and uncertainty. Maybe this was the end. I fought off as many as I could, but I knew that the battle was already lost. One of the creatures evaded my attacks and flung me aside. It grabbed the box and dug its claws deep into my side as crimson liquid poured out. Death did not ignore my pleas this time. I could see Professor Ryan watching from his porch. Even though he acted like he didn't care, there was a dullness on his face. He had given up his true family to save us several millennia ago, but his efforts were now in vain. Professor Ryan slowly left his house and sat beside me, watching the sky groan loudly. My vision was blurry, but I knew what was happening. They had risen, the ancient entities that had descended from the heavens several millennia ago. Sparks of lightning flashed in the distance as they emerged from the ocean. They were coming for him, and he knew it. I could see them even from a distance. Tall, dark, and terrifying. I failed my planet. I had failed mankind. I dropped to my knees, watching the last light of the sun in the distance. I could finally feel death's calm embrace. Megan! Megan! I whispered under my breath. I'm coming. I know I tried. I tried to save the Earth from these ancient entities. As darkness began to sweep across the evening sky, I shut my eyes to the uncertainty of death. Earth was no longer my reality. Hey Creepypasta fans, it's Joseph. Thanks for listening. To connect with us and support us, make sure to check out our Discord and Patreon links in the description. And remember, stay cosmic.